Hey, welcome back. I just left out the guys or the whatever. That's a solution too. Let's look at some examples. So, the best thing, which I'm going to say over and over and over again throughout this semester, the best thing to do to understand anything in linguistics is to look at examples. You can understand the concept of a monotransitive verb. Okay, yeah, it's a verb that has a direct object. It's a verb where the direct object receives the action of the verb. It's a concept that is clear. But unless you start looking at some example sentences, you're not going to get the true and special knowledge of how to do linguistics, which is what this course is about. This course is about doing linguistics. If you're taking a course and you're learning about how other people have done something in their field, then that's fine. This is not that class, That's why I said at the beginning of the semester, this is a participatory class. You have to participate. If you don't participate, I can virtually guarantee that you will not understand the material. If you do the readings, if you watch the films, if you watch the lectures, and by saying that, I don't mean maybe only one time. Maybe you're going to watch the lectures once, maybe you're going to watch them twice, maybe you're going to go back to certain sections and review them 3 times, right? Because we don't have a vocabulary in linguistics that is established that I can assume when I talk to you about the structure of language. When you're in high school, I know that you have taken literature classes, but what about linguistics, right? If anyone has taken a linguistics class in high school, I want to meet that person and I want to know what school that is, because they are starting to do that in some places. In Cambridge, they have, at the public high school there, an introductory course in linguistics. Of course, it's wildly popular. How did we get to this? Anyway, examples, okay? They're going to help. So let's look at this when Morgan closed his mouth. What is going on here with closed his mouth? We know that the subject of the sentence is Morgan. It's what or who the sentence is about. And then the predicate is the rest of the sentence. It's the part of the sentence that tells us something about Morgan. So in this instance, it's what did Morgan do? He closed his mouth. So closed we see as the main verb. It's showing up with a past tense inflection, so you know that it's the main verb. And then following it, you have this his mouth. And so what do you have to do? You have to think to yourself, how does his mouth relate to Morgan closed? And so when you think about it, his mouth is receiving the action of the verb close, because his mouth is the thing that gets closed. So for that reason, we have the verb direct object pattern that's going to be monotransitive. Okay, so whenever you encounter any sentence that you're looking at, the fundamental question that you're asking is, what is the meaning that the parts of the sentence are contributing toward the whole sentence? So if you have that was impossible, you know that you're going to have a subject first and then following it the predicate. Your subject here is that. Was impossible, therefore, is the predicate, and we can see that was is the main verb. It's the only verb in the sentence. Why? Because impossible looks like an adjective. It's describing that. It's describing the subject of the sentence. Aha. So even though we have subject, verb, and then this other guy coming after the verb, that other guy coming after the verb is not functioning as a direct object here. It's functioning as a modifier of the subject of the sentence, so it's a subject complement. And therefore this type for number 2 is going to be intensive. Okay, that was impossible. Whenever you go back to the subject of the sentence for the meaning, you know that you're dealing with intensive type. Okay, let's look at our next example. His repeated appeals were unsuccessful. So in this sentence, you have a subject which is a little bit more complex than typical, but a subject could be of any random complexity, right? You could have a sentence like, the little old lady who lives down the road who no one ever talks to was happy. You know, that whole subject is going to be the little old lady who lives down the road who no one ever talks to. It can be huge. You could have a subject that would go on for 10 minutes and then you would finally give the predicate. You know, it'd be weird if you did that actually in practice, because people will get tired of waiting for you to finish your sentence, so they probably wouldn't want to be listening to you for that long, but there's nothing in the structure of English that would prevent that. So many of the examples that we've been using are examples where the subject is comprised of a single word, but it could be made up of multiple words. So in this case, his repeated appeals is the subject of the sentence. It's what the sentence is about, right? And then you have were unsuccessful. So we think, were, this is definitely the main verb. It's showing the past tense. And then we have unsuccessful. What is unsuccessful doing in this sentence? What is it telling us about? Is it telling us about were? You know, is unsuccessful describing the verb were? That doesn't seem to work, right? But if we say unsuccessful, it's actually talking about his repeated appeals, that whole phrase, the whole subject of the sentence, then that seems to describe the meaning here. Therefore, we know that unsuccessful is a subject complement, and therefore we know that the verb phrase type is intensive. Okay? So Ginny criticized the paragraph. You have your subject, Ginny, and then you have your predicate, criticized the paragraph. So you want to know what's going on between criticize and the paragraph. Well, you've got the past tense marker here. You know that that's going to be the main verb. The paragraph, what is the paragraph doing here? Is the paragraph describing Ginny? Is it going back to the subject of the sentence? If it were, it would be a subject complement, but that doesn't seem to be the meaning here, right? It's not that Ginny is a paragraph. She criticized the paragraph. Aha! So the paragraph is receiving the action of the verb. It's the thing that gets criticized. So we have that familiar type of monotransitive. This guy, the paragraph, is the direct object of the main verb criticize, and the whole verb phrase type is monotransitive. And then you have toffee is the main export. Toffee is the main export. Looking at this, you first want to know what's the subject, what's the predicate. Well, the sentence is about toffee. It's occurring at the beginning of the sentence. Looks like it's probably the subject. So you would have toffee as your subject, and then you've got your verb, as you would expect, is. It looks like is the only verb in this sentence, because after that you have the main export, and none of those are working as verbs here. So you want to think, what is going on with the main export? Is it that the main export is receiving the action of the verb is? Is there some sort of event going on such that the main export is affected somehow or changed? And that doesn't seem to really fit the meaning, right? Really what's happening is that the main export is going back to the subject of the sentence, toffee. It is going back to the subject of the sentence, and therefore you know this has to be a subject complement, and you have intensive verb phrase type. So it will never be enough to just look at the structure of the sentence and see, oh, well, here I have a verb followed by a noun phrase, and therefore I know that it's monotransitive. No, because you could have a verb followed by a noun phrase, and it could be monotransitive. She read the book, but you could also have a verb followed by a noun phrase and have it be intensive. Toffee is the main export. So that's why it's crucial to think about the meaning of each and every sentence in determining what the structure is.